Tracy Amigos, former football coaches turned insurance agents to talk about Texas Aggie football.
All right, guys, welcome to Trace Amigos, episode 25-14 on the season. We're going to break down this crazy game that happened on Saturday, like a bipolar, I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. But
nobody has.
Yeah,
Nobody has.
Yeah, you're right. 186 times it did not end this way. So, so it was a pretty crazy game. I'll tell you, watching at my house, because unfortunately I did get offered tickets. I know Seth was at the game. Mark got offered tickets and had some sick family members. I got offered tickets and had wild Kratts tickets. I got a 6-year-old, and so unfortunately I had to turn it down to go to wild Kratts. I will say that at halftime my wife looked at my middle daughter and said, "You may be going to Dad's place because I don't want to deal with him tonight." So luckily the second half turned around. But just want to say thanks again. Had over 3,200 views on YouTube again. Added about another 150 subscribers. We're almost to 1,200 now. Like I said, we'd really like to get to 1,500 by the Texas game. So if you could share, like, comment, all those things, we really, really appreciate it. And definitely love the comments and love people's suggestions and requests, all those type of things. So I think we mentioned last time, we're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. So follow us on all those different things. But yeah, what a wild and crazy game. Before we get into breaking it down, Mark, Seth, y'all got anything to add? Y'all want to?
Well, I'll just say, watching this game live and seeing kind of what I was seeing, it just, regardless of like the week before, we heard a lot about Indiana scoring late on an amazing catch, right? And people were like, "Oh my God, they're against the backup quarterback." We need to stop making all these comparisons. I know that the way the system is built, we do that. But the bottom line is, I think people need to realize, and for coaching for 20 years in high school and working in college for 7, winning football games is hard. It's harder in the NFL than it is anywhere because the talent level is so equal. It's harder in the SEC than it is. That doesn't mean that it's not hard in the Big Ten. It's hard everywhere. And comebacks like we saw on Saturday, and Elko mentioned, and I hate it because I'd already written my thing out is what I was going to say, but he kind of stole this from me. But comebacks like those are built many months before. It's from planning and how you are able to teach your kids to adjust things in game. Takes a lot of time to do that, and the culture to have athletes that always believe they're going to win. I know that in 2016, and I don't want to say too much, but in 2016, for Carthage, there was some doubt as to whether that team was talented enough. But they won all these crazy games, overtime games, last-second games, and that came from us winning the 4 before that. The 4 championships, the culture was built that this is the expectation and we can beat anybody on any given day. That the kids just believed it. And sometimes when you're calling X's and O's, or you're watching, we should have done this and there's got to be a belief system built in, and you have to have great coaching where the kids are coached up enough that they can make adjustments in game. And so this, to me, the whole game, even when I watched it, the whole game hinged on 2 fourth down calls. Like, it could have gone either way. The one was the 4th and 12 that Marcel scrambles, and give him the freaking Heisman just for that play. That shows you that he is a huge difference maker. He doesn't get that. We're not talking like this today. And the other one was the 4th and 1 where we had kind of scored, and then they drove down into our territory and got into a 4th and 1 situation, and we blow it up amazingly, get the ball back, and then all of a sudden the momentum those 2 4th down plays are so, either one of those plays goes the other way, we're not here today. We're talking about how we almost came back.
Yeah. What's funny about both those 4th downs is the 4th down that Reed ran for it. you talk about it, that was a gutsy call by Elko to go for it in that situation. But I think we had a group text, and Seth said, or Mark said, you didn't have a choice. You had to go for it. And so, and that's true. But I will tell you, looking back on it, I was really, really, it said a lot about Beamer's mindset when he went for it on that 4th and 1, because he knew he couldn't stop us the rest of the game. It's almost, when we were in the state championship in 2013. I won't mention the school, but if you look it up, you'll know. We were up on them by less than once, I think 4 points maybe. Late in the 4th quarter, they're driving. They get to the 50-yard line. It's 4th and short, and they punt. And we all knew then. We said
It was over.
It's over. They don't want to win. They just don't want to get embarrassed. And so. Yeah, so I think that said a lot of mindset. Seth, you got anything before we go into the good, bad, and ugly, boss?
I've had people ask me all the time about, well, I guess Elko might have broke 2 chairs, and that guys, these halftime speeches things is overrated, and I'm so glad that he talked about that in the press conference, because it's just we've said this on this podcast many times, that the opposite of what the normal, I shouldn't say normal, but general population who's never been in a part of a coaching staff, never been, usually the opposite of what you think is what's happening when it comes to the emotional feelings of a coach. And one of the things is, if you see a coach not doing that, sometimes that's a bad sign. Brian Kelly. So anyway, but where Mike Elko, if you look at him, if we're winning big, he looks pissed off. And that's because his job is to balance out the emotional swings of 18 to 22-year-old dudes. And so that is a social contagion, is the word we've used before to describe when like something amongst the youth just goes crazy. That kind of stuff happens in microseconds on a football game. You big 4th down stop, the elation occurs, and then it's easy to kind of come off that as a little bit. It's time to, we got to lock back in and focus. Yes, we're all fired up, but we got to lock back in and focus. You can't just be, and all that kind of stuff. Like, his job, and I'm glad he addressed that in the press conference. That halftime speech, there ain't no broken chairs. There is no screaming and yelling. It's just, here's what we got to do. Here's how we do it. And it's one play at a time. And you get the belief back in place that you can go do it. Like Mark talked about, you have to reset them and go, they got to, and Matt too, you've got to walk out and believe we can go win this game. And then I was happy to see that the smart choice was made to go to play like it was a 2-minute drill from the very first snap of the 3rd quarter. That was something that I was happy to see, because that's the logical conclusion on how you have to play that. But not all coaching staffs would do that sometimes. It's amazing how sometimes the logical things aren't done.
Does anybody remember Sumlin at UCLA?
Correct. The opposite of that, where, hey, let's run a run play.
Yeah, let's milk the clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have tons of time, we don't have to rush. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Somebody on TextAgs did the math and said, I'm going to butcher the details, but I will give them credit. They had went back and watched that game. This is the type of nerdy, rage-induced, nerdy film watching that I can appreciate. They had gone back and done the math on, if we had started kneeling it with like 8 minutes to go in the game, we would have still won.
Like, if we had just
scored on one play each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, take a knee 3 times, punt it, we would have won that game. Yeah.
Yes. We would have won the game, starting at an insanely early rate.
That's crazy.
Well, and I'll say this, just a couple of things. That's the same thing. Carthage is known in high school football for just their ability to, oh my God, the defense gave up 28 points in the first half. They gave up none in the second half. Like things like that. And, it's a 28-minute halftime in high school. And a lot of that time is built with, hey, what did they hurt us with? And what can we do schematically? And we spend a lot of time with the kids. And then Scott comes in there and says, okay, all the adjustments are made. It's up to you. Let's go get it done. And there's not a lot of rah-rah. And when there's not a lot of rah-rah, that allows the kids to say, okay, it's a technical thing. I've got to fix this in this situation. We're going to change the way we do this. And then they're more calmed into, okay, it's just about execution. And I think Elko is very, very the same as Scott as, look, it's about execution. And it really was in the second half. And I'm going to tell you later on, the difference in the defense from the first half and the second half. And it's it's so subtle. And if you go back and watch the film with that in mindset, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like it's huge on defense what we did, and it's kids.
It's subtle.
Yeah.
That's the key word. It's subtle. We don't reinvent the wheel at halftime, right?
Oh, and this one,
You don't reinvent the wheel.
No.
Yeah. All right, well, getting into the good, bad, and ugly, and I'm not going to. The difference between Marcel Reed the first half and Marcel Reed the second half was not subtle. He showed resilience and grit, which I think are two terms that you hear coaches, players, analysts, all kinds of people throw around all the time. That oh, this kid's got the. You visibly saw it. You visibly saw it. The kid, his first half was 6 for 19. That's 32 completion percentage. If that was a batting average, you might be okay. Completion percentage in football, not so hot. 141 yards, which isn't bad, but no touchdowns and 2 awful interceptions we'll talk about in a minute. And I had people text me, oh, you got to pull Reed. You can't have, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, dude, you can't pull your starting quarterback right now. I know it's ugly, but you lose the whole team when you do that. So they go back in, take a deep breath. He comes back out, and I don't know if I've ever seen a kid do this in one game from one half to the other. Comes back out, 16 of 20, 75% completion, so over double what he had the first half. 298 yards, nearly 300 yards passing in the second half, and 3 touchdowns. That is ridiculous. And you talked about it, Mark, the 4th down and 12 that he took off running.
It's all him.
And you know, that's a kid that yeah, he probably didn't. Nobody in that stadium felt worse about his first half performance than he did. I promise you that. He's a competitor. There's not a coach, there's not a parent, there's not a fan that felt worse than he did. But to have the mental fortitude to go in and reset yourself what is he, 20 years old? Is he even old enough to drink yet?
21, maybe.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
And to
His
have
first half drove some people to drinking.
Yeah, yeah. But to have that mental fortitude to reset and refocus and come back out, that's special. That's real special. And everybody's seen the stat, you know, in the SEC since I think they said 04, teams that were down 27 or more at halftime are 0 for 286. 0 for 286. So now they're 1 for 286. And that's really, really.
Matt,
Yes, sir.
can I say this? I'm just going to talk about 2 different coaching styles. Somebody had to say something to him at halftime, like, "Hey, man, put it behind you. You're the man. You're special." You know, somebody has to what is that word? To reinforce his own belief system in himself to do that, because a lot of coaches, you go 6 of 19 and throw 2 bad picks. You know, there's some quarterback coaches, you might have seen them on the sidelines at some point, who are just ripping the guy. Just ripping him. And that was not the time. They know who he is. And I feel like somebody, Klein, Elko, somebody, quarterback's coach, whatever, said, "Hey, dude, put it behind you. You can win this game. You're the man. We know you can do it." Because sometimes you just need somebody to tell you, you know, we're behind you. And
Yeah.
I think the team does that really well. And they said that York and Reed went through the locker room. Kind of, there's that period of time where coaches are gathering up, talking schematics, and the players are kind of to themselves. And they went through the locker room and said, "We're winning this game." And that belief system in himself has come from other people believing in him too.
Yeah, no doubt. But that was my good. Just the I can't get over how I can see a kid having a bad game and turn around the next game. He had a bad half, had 20 minutes to get his head refocused, and was able to do that and play like that. That's unbelievable. So, Seth, what was your good, boss? And I think you kind of hinted on it a second ago.
Yeah, well, first off, the tempo that we used in the third quarter, yeah, we had to do that because of the situation. But I love the way the offense looked in that, and Coach Elko talked about in his press conference that they call that 6-minute offense, where you're down by 2 scores with about 6 minutes to go, or he said 3 scores with about 8 to 10 minutes to go, and they do practice it. He said not very much, but I would if I had any special requests, I would request that we practice it some more and make it a part of our repertoire instead of when it's only needed, because Marcel looked at home operating it. There was no confusion, because I mean that's the thing. If you've ever used tempo before as an OC or a part of an offensive staff that's used tempo, you can shoot yourself. You can blow your whole leg off trying to do it, right? Not even shoot yourself in the foot. Like you can look, it can be a complete net negative. But even given the situation, we looked at home running it. Didn't look lost, didn't look confused. There was a couple of little things, but that was more of a one player than it was a system-wide failure of some kind. And so my request would be bust this out a little bit more. We actually, people think of up-tempo offenses with passing. That's usually what it's always associated with, right? Up-tempo, 5 wide, 4 wide. No, what up-tempo helps you the most with is in your run game.
Yes.
That is where it truly, truly can make things better. And we were not getting South Carolina had a really good game plan against us. Again, most people are still playing us, even with what we see Marcel Reed do. They're still playing us to stop the run first and beat us through the air. And that's how defensive coordinators think. You see KC and Craven be like, I'd be trying to keep those guys from being too explosive. They're still making us do the explosive play with them. And they were rolling and spinning down that extra guy into the box all first half. And reason they were doing that is because we were on the line check, then they check, and then here they get nice and situated, and then here comes that extra safety or that nickel who rolls into the box and is the extra man at the point of attack. And when you go into a tempo mode, it's less likely they're going to be able to do that. Defenses will typically get into a little bit more of a base thing because they don't want to get caught busted. And so I liked that it did that for our run game. But also, I mean, it's just a simple thing that it is harder to play defensive line from an energy usage perspective than it is offensive line. And you'll notice all of a sudden, wow, we're getting a push up front. Well, tempo can get that for you. I mean, I know this sounds crazy, but the 2 years I coached in a wing T offense that we averaged over 50 points a game, all for 2 straight seasons, we were an up-tempo wing T. We were running up to the line and running trap and buck sweep and jet sweep as fast as you could do it.
So
I mean, we had all hand signals.
Yeah. So I was going to tell you, when Sumlin was at A&M, of course, Mark knows this, ROC left to go down to A&M and be a assistant O-line coach. And so we stole some of their concepts on their NASCAR going fast. And I remember the very first time we ever did it in practice, we had linebackers throwing up because we were going so fast and they couldn't get lined up. And then we were throwing screens and we were running, and it was 6 plays. Like literally we'd tell them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but we were going so fast that I vividly remember 2 of our linebackers bending over halfway through it and throwing up because they were just out. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
it's a weapon, and I'm not a tempo zealot. I'll say that out loud. I'm not a tempo zealot like some people are. Like we should always be up. No, you need to be able to do both. But if it's a weapon that you can utilize, and I know a lot from a defensive coach's perspective, oftentimes tempo is less wanting to be used because you don't want to. That also makes your defense potentially have to play more snaps. But I think it could be like if you as a pitcher, if you've got a good changeup, it makes your fastball play up kind of in that particular situation, like busting out some tempo mid-drive early in the game and then getting right back into it. I think that could be, especially to get the run game going. And we're such a good RPO offense. Like you said, Mark, we can make 5 or 6 of our base RPOs and just go run them. And then you've got the option to throw the ball, run the ball, Marcel keep it, all those things. And I read a blog years ago, tried to find it. I think it must be deleted into the internet archives. But some guy had pulled up clip from when Lane Kiffin was might have been when he first with Florida Atlantic. He ran the same RPO on an 8-play drive for a touchdown. Did not run a single different play. Had a hitch on the field side, had a bubble, like some quick screen, had a quarterback zone read, and you watch the drive, it looks like they're mixing it all up, same play, over and over and over again, as fast as you could run it. and 8-play drive for a touchdown, and that's what the RPO game can do for you. You know, you have options on each play, and we've gotten really Marcel's gotten so good in the RPO game. But yeah, so the tempo was such a great thing to see us use, but it also made me go, I want more. I want more of that, please, to get the run game going. Yeah,
You say that in every game I watch from the defensive perspective, I always think, man, can we please score first? Can we split? I'd love to see us come out and start a game in that stuff. It's all
sure.
scripted. That's the
Yes,
easiest time to do it. Go
it
down and get
is.
up
Yes,
7, and our defense just has a different mentality when we're up.
it does. Yes.
So
Yes, it's a our defense, and I mean that's where we've used the styles of defense where Missouri's like this, just going to restrict you from explosives and make you drive and snap it 10, 12 plays. And our defense is a haymaker defense. Like we're looking to land
Yes.
the knockout punch on second or first down so that you're behind the sticks on third, and then we can land another knockout punch. Your gloves are down at that point. And so I think I mean, yes, you could get yourself into because that style of defense can be explosive give up if if you don't watch out. But I think that's how I mean, like what we did in that second half, if you're watching that as a college football analyst and you're going, that team is not losing to anybody in the second
Nobody.
half. Ohio State, I don't care. They're not losing to anybody. Yeah, that first half team would lose to anybody, and the second half team would not lose to anybody.
yeah,
And so, yes, if we can just and then the thing about it is if we overwhelm you and get up 3 scores early, then we have the capability of just run gaming you to death and then still knocking you out, when you're having to play at one dimensional, like we got to throw the ball to catch up. That's exactly where Elko wants you to be. So, yeah, I know we're beating this to death, but still, like, I would love to see a little bit more tempo used early. Second thing, I love the scheme we dialed up to get the touchdown on the comeback to Boa Kertcher. This is some high level stuff. We are in a 5-by-0. We are in, I don't even know what you call it, quints, right? Or quints left. And we have Trip, 3 receivers up top, 2 tight ends. So we're in 0-2 personnel. And we are going to run a play action quarterback sweep. And this is the fact that we catch them sleeping because what really breaks this open is the fact that this guy, Isaiah Williams, who's lined up in the number 2 spot, he is on the line. He is ineligible. And they didn't have time, though, because we broke the huddle to get lined up properly to that. And we have man versus man and man. And then you've got what looks like they're going to try to have a bracket coverage over here, but they're all kinds of confused on how to defend this. And of course, we go to the next play or go to where the play actually plays. I have it on half speed so we can see it really easily. But the other high level thing to this, even though we break Boerkircher wide open, look at how he settles the route in the grass. Look at how Marcel Reed throws it opposite of the defender. So not only was it a high level scheme, high level execution of the scheme as well when you needed it most. So go ahead.
Notice.
Go ahead, Mark.
So it's not quints or whatever you want to call it. It's quads because one guy's ineligible.
Yeah,
but
correct.
Boerkircher, whatever, he is just replacing the guy that they're targeting to mess this up.
Yep.
He says,
right.
okay, that's where he's at. That's my spot. If he attacks the bubble, because the bubble's ineligible, basically, but if he attacks it, I got him. And he just settles in that zone. This is hard to defend, and they don't have enough guys right now. Right now, they don't have enough guys on that side of the hash.
No, that safety
to
should
cover
have.
it.
Yeah, the safety needed to slide over, but
I mean, even the fact that we had what y'all called Nike protection on, where we're going to pull the right guard as that. Watch out that does to that linebacker. See him pulls him a couple of steps downhill because he thinks, well, this might be quarterback sweep. And anyway, yeah. And then Boerkircher not running because he could have ran himself covered right there.
yes, he could.
We talked about it last year extensively about how we would drift routes into coverage, right? Like if he's drifting inside, looking over that right shoulder, then that has a chance for it to be broke up by that safety or that Mike linebacker. So just a high-level football scheme, a high-level football execution, and just a joy to watch. It was truly awesome to see this. And this is one of those things where every week you have like, hey, if we have to have a red zone shot play, we know we're going to probably get this look, and we could probably scheme this up to be open. There you go. That's scheming something up to be open. I know I've heard people complain about that before, like, we can't scheme up anybody to be open. Well, there it is. There we did it
There
right
you
there
go.
when we needed it most.
Yeah.
Yep. So, second thing, last but not least, culture, guys. Man, this is Isaiah Williams last year versus McNeese State. We even talked about how bad he looked a little bit. I think it was a part of our. He had 2 big drops. Right there on the goal line. Him and Marcel back before Marcel was even the
The
starter.
guy. Yeah.
And then go on to this here, another great scheme, but he gets his number called, and yeah, it's just this guy hadn't had a target this year unless I'm mistaken, and his first target of the year is maybe the biggest touchdown of the season. I mean, it can be argued that was the first one, to get it going. So it's just cool to see because it's different. You hear. I feel like when you listen to the coaches, Coach Elko talk and Coach Smart, Kirby Smart talk, what they're trying to do is very similar. In that, hey, we want physical dogs who are going to come in here and they're tough and they don't mind being developed. And a guy like Isaiah Williams, after the way last year went, he probably had portal guys calling him,
Oh, yeah.
Saying, hey, why don't you come over here? We'll make you a starter. And
That's
he
right.
stuck around, and then he ends up with the hugest. I mean, already it's going to be hard to top what he did in that game. In his career, even though he's still a redshirt freshman, so he's got plenty of snaps left to play. So really cool to see how I would call that culture depth paid off in a really big.
Hey,
really,
and not
really
only
big
that,
instance.
did you hear what ABR said about when he caught it? He said, "What did you think about him catching?" He said, "I almost cried. I was so excited for that guy." Now, how cool is
Yeah.
that? I mean, that's that goes
in
to
the
cool.
receiver room.
Yeah, in the
Where
receiver
that
prima
kinda-
donna room.
That is not normal
That
behavior
is not
for
normal.
a receiver room.
No, it is not.
Ask the Philadelphia Eagles about the receiver room.
Yeah. That's why they've had to get so good on defense. They've given up on the offense. They're like, we can't get those guys.
If
to
I
get
have
along.
one request for Wiggins, and those guys, when you are vetting and scouting receivers, please just keep putting dogs in that room, even if they might be a 4.31 instead of a 4.27 or whatever the heck you're looking for speed wise. Like, give me a 0.05 or a tenth slower for guys like that, because that is, I think that's one of the biggest X factors this team has, is that the room that usually is the biggest cancer is like the biggest team and culture room.
Well, I think we talked.
Maybe
Yeah,
I'm overplaying that. But.
I think we talked about it, Seth. And Elko said it on his podcast, or not his podcast, on his radio broadcast this last week, which me and Seth get to go to this week, by the way. But anyway,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be down there. Sorry, bud.
We're really not Trace Amigos. We're just 2 amigos and the other guy.
Anyway, he made a comment because they asked him, in the world we live in today with transfers and NIL and recruiting and all this, how hard it is to build a culture because you have so many moving parts. And he said, I tell kids all the time, don't ever make me pick you or the culture because I'll pick culture every time. And I thought that was awesome. So, all right. So my bad. If you'll pull them up, Seth, we're going to go over the 2 interceptions. Just because this is just so uncharacteristic of Reed, because he's got both these plays were great schemes. Guys were open. So the first one you got down here in the red zone, you got what we call a smash concept. The outside guys running a little quick out to what you're hoping he'll do is take this guy here that has the deep third to open up the corner route. If he goes with the corner, you throw the out. It's a simple read for the quarterback. And so you can see here, and you teach that receiver, if you get behind the deep guy, you keep it high. Stay high if you get behind him. If he stays high, then you cross his face and run it flatter. And so obviously he gets behind the deep guy here. So Marcel, if he puts some air under it and throws it to that back pylon, it's 7 points as easy as he's ever had. Unfortunately, he throws it flat, and the guy, and you can see he gets lost. That's how he gets behind him. The guy turns around, boom, the ball almost hits him in the face. So the concept was great. Craver ran a great route. It was just a poorly thrown ball by Reed, and I guarantee he would tell you that. But I heard a lot of people griping about Klein and some of his calls. His call was not the wrong call. It was just the wrong throw.
Yeah.
Matt, that reminds me of, as a defensive coach working for Surratt, we'd get the ball in 1st and goal, 2nd and goal inside the 5, and he'd throw a pass play. And we did it one time in the regional final, and it's same thing. Throw it to the pylon, guys wide open, and freaking all-world Division I safety figured it out late and made an unbelievable catch. And I still give Scott, or I try to give Scott a hard time about that. Like, we did have a guy that could play in the NFL at running back that year. Just hand him the ball 4 times. And he's like,
All right.
by God, if we'd have thrown it right. He's always like, by God, if the throw was right.
Hey, that's
He's
all
like,
right.
Never the call. It's not always the call.
Mark, I'll never forget it. We're
Yeah.
playing, who the heck? I think we were playing Silsby at Lufkin, round 3. And we had a kid that was 6'5", and we would throw him fades down there. Because, I mean, in high school, 6'5" guy. I mean, it's like easy money. And we ran it, and the quarterback threw it out of the back of the end zone. And he's like, how do you overthrow a 6'5" guy? Underthrow it if you have to, but give him a chance.
Right.
Next time he underthrows it, our receiver doesn't even come back and fight for it. Doesn't even fight for it. Just watches the corner catch it. And then next thing you know, Scott's ripping the quarterback for not throwing. And I let him rip him for a while. And then I finally came on. I was like, Scott, that was really my receiver's fault. Like I know, Fulmer, shut up. I know. And I was like, okay, well, I felt bad for the quarterback getting ripped because it was really my guy's fault. But
Right.
Hey, that guy was a pretty good receiver. Played at my alma mater.
He was pretty stinking good, really good. I remember his sophomore year when I first got there. If you were a varsity coach, you also coached JV, and we had the first little JV practice. And he's 6'5". Like, how many 6'5" guys do you get on a high school football team? Like, not very many. But we'd start doing drills.
Harbor.
Yeah, he was a sophomore, and we'd start doing drills, and he's at the back of the line. I finally pulled him up. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I don't really know. Like, I didn't play much last year. I was like, well, you're going to play a lot this year, so I need you at the front of the line. I need you paying attention.
Yeah.
I think the second JV game of the year, he caught 3 go routes against Lindale, and he was on varsity the rest of his sophomore, junior, senior year. And, he went to play at North Texas. But
hey, for the record, Matt, I was the guy that found him his freshman year. He played safety and had 6 picks for us, 3 in one game, because he was so quiet. The offensive guys didn't, they would never – they didn't think, and he didn't go hard to them because he was so long. It didn't look like he was ever putting much effort into it. And then y'all stole him, and you figured it out. And then he played offense the rest of his time, never played defense again. 6 interceptions his freshman year.
Hey, that's all right. He got a scholarship, got to play Division I football. Great kid. But all right.
Green, baby.
Yep. So here we've got a stick dig route concept at the top. And inside guys running a 5-yard out, outside guys running a 10-yard dig. It's still cover 3, and KC runs an unbelievable route here and is wide open, and Reed just overthrows him. You can see he comes across, that guy's bailing. He gets his hips turned. He's open, and he's
settling it down just like he's supposed to.
Yeah. I mean, he just overthrew it. And like I said, I'm not trying to hammer on Reed or anything, but this was my bad because I saw some people making comments about, oh, well, we just put Reed in bad situations and ROC this, and we'll talk about the one down on the goal line. And if you're listening to this and you think that was a bad call, you might want to turn it off now, because me and Seth are both in agreement it was not a bad call. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Look,
but
as a defensive coach, that route's going to be open every time.
Yep.
Every time against that coverage.
Yep.
Every time.
And that's what I'm saying. Our OC knows what he's doing. He's doing a great job. So, amazing. The good was how he responded to these 2 interceptions, and got all the faith in the world in Reed. But that was my bad on the game. So, all right, what you got on the bad there, Mr. Seth?
It's about this a lot, and I have an actual example now to talk about how Elko's long-term long-term conscious thinking, unlike some, coaching staffs out there that's just always right now, what are we doing right now, and shooting from the hip is what we used to call it. Like, and that'll pay off. Sometimes that pays off for you in the short term.
Hey,
really
I just
does.
want you to know I won $400 on Friday shooting from the hip. So
true. Well, yeah, that's what we had a little bit of prep involved there.
We did.
So, long story short, Elko's forgotten more ball than I'll ever know. But if I have one little gripe, it's about the long-term decision thinking almost cost us, I think, a little bit in this game. Because, like, for example, you could see we were going to try to make it through this game without shooting all of our bullets, so to speak. And so, like, for example, the first 3 series of offense, we played with what I'll call the 1B line, where Father replays tackle, Zune at center. ARA was not in the game. That tells me ARA is probably nursing something. We were going to try to sneak through this whole game without using him. When I saw that, I knew they had the clamps on Marcel running as well. And to me, Marcel plays better when he knows he can take off. And so when you put the clamps on him, he just seems to. That's where I think we see the hitches happen. Where have the hitches happened? They've happened in games of where we should easily handle people, but we're trying to get through it with long-term thinking. So that being said, I'm grateful for the long-term thinking process. I'm grateful for that, and I don't mean to be critical of Elko, but at some point, and we tried, to be fair, we tried to turn it on right before the strip, sack, fumble, thick six, as they call it, where the big man scored. ARA was in the game for that series. That was the second play of that series. So we were like, okay, yeah, ARA is going to have to play. And at that point, we were down, was it 17 or I don't know, either one. But that type of play you give up, that just, the hole got bigger. And I thought we might, and I thought of it at the game because I noticed it as soon as it came. I saw Zoom was snapping the ball. I was like, interesting. And I was like, okay, I know what we're trying to do here. And then I was like, we may have just dug too big a hole trying to do this. And I'm not saying that was to blame. You still got to play football and all that. But that is something that we got to figure out a way because here's what I'm getting around to. Most kids in that locker room are pretty smart. There's some dumb kids too. There's no question about it. Every locker room's got it, right? They have no like conscious of what's going on. But guys like York, guys like Reed, the offensive line, those guys are conscious of some of those things that are being done. And I think that can creep into you psychologically about, hey, I just got to get through this game too, preserve myself. We got to just go get that win and think long term here. And that can create a potential lull early. And then when you have the situation where we're back to, oh, crap, no more long term thinking, like it's go, go, go. And then all of a sudden we look like the best team in the country. Right. So it's like we got to find a way to balance the long term decision making and then not letting that creep into some of the player psychology early in the game. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying, oh, no. At some point, we should just abandon that and shoot our bullet. No, I'm not saying. I'm saying at some point, we got to find that balancing act of here's what we're doing to preserve for potentially 16 games. Because if we do what we would like to do, that's a 16-game season. But also burying a team early that you need to bury early. You know what I mean? So it's like, how do you balance that out? It's tough. That's why he gets the contract extension and the big bucks and the assistant SAP salary pool that hasn't been increased. And they got, in effect, immediately incentive-based additions to their contract. They're going to get a lot of extra money this year based on, conference championship potentially game and playoffs and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's why those guys make that big money is they got to figure out a way. And I know they're thinking about this too. I'm not acting like this is some unfound thought, but they got to think about a way. How do we balance those two things? Anyway, that's my bad is that I felt like that long-term thinking might have crept into a very short, fast run of, oh crap, now we're in a hole, So anyway, that's my only bad.
All
Get
right.
to the ugly later.
Yeah. So my ugly, and I was busy yesterday, so by the time I got in to start looking at stuff, Seth had already broken this down so well. I was like, I'm gonna let him take it. It's the 3rd and goal call there in the 4th quarter.
Put you in, bro.
So I'll let Seth take that. I will answer. We had
getting it pulled up.
Yeah, we had a gentleman ask what did South Carolina do to shut down our run game in the first half. I think Seth kind of talked about it earlier. They stacked the box. Like if you go back and you stop every snap right before the ball's snapped, there's at least 6 guys in the box. If there's no tight ends in the box, as soon as we roll a tight end in, they're going to 7-8 people in the box. And so they just had they had numbers, and that a lot of times that's it's a numbers game. We talk about you count the box, and so and Seth talked about how did we get to it in the second half. Well, we went up tempo, and all of a sudden those guys are breathing a little bit harder, and we can get a better push on them. So it wasn't some crazy scheme change or anything like that. It was just numbers game. And then, like Seth said, you get in the second half and you speed up the pace. All of a sudden, those big guys aren't quite as aggressive. So hope that helps answer that question. And Seth, I'll let you talk about, and I'll chime in on this play here because it was not a bad design play. It was not. It was poorly executed, but not scheme was fine. So
okay, so what we've got here, and we've talked about this play. We talked about this play many times. This is another variation of blocking counter. All right, we have the entire offensive line providing what we call the down blocks, inside blocks, and away blocks, and not pulling a guard. That just in the red zone, sometimes you do that and use your tight ends for the kick out and the lead block or the cram or the seal or the wrap block. There's all the different names for that block. And so that just creates a less opportunity. If you don't pull a guard, there's less opportunity for a run through. By design, if you watch how this play plays out, that's not a bad play call. If, here we get into the ifs, okay? Let me tell you something. This is an option play, and Morrow has repped it and practiced that way. You can tell, right? You can tell. But this was a situation where you tell the kid pre-snap there is no option. This is a pure run. And you may think, well, yeah, and I would have been fine with two things. E.J. Smith had ran it 2 plays in a row, but it's near the last play of the game. I would have probably left him in there for this. He's 23 or 4 years old, and Jamarion's 19. So there's a difference there. Second thing that, like I said, lock in the option. I mean, block out the option. Make it a keep. Like Morrow, you can fake the pitch, but then get up in there and get on 17's hip.
Yep.
Like that's how you're taught. We talked about how you're supposed to follow that second puller, right?
He walks in.
So if he just locks it in, yes, exactly. If we put him where I drew that red arrow, and the fake pitch could be, because he really emphasized it to me. I think he was thinking it was still an option. If he just gives a little token fake pitch and then gets low like he can, because his center of gravity is about the lowest on the team, and squirts up there riding Thor's hip. I know those 2 South Carolina guys were penetrating, and I'll talk more about that a little bit in a second. Or they were up the field. They're up the field too much.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Him really doing the pitch and thinking the option was still on is what created the opportunity for those guys to be involved in the play. Now, I will say, if you go back to the play, Marcel snapped it a little too soon. And that made it where that up the field, blow up the mesh defensive end had a chance to get into the mix.
Boerkircher should have been able to kick him out if we allow him to get over further. Yes.
Correct.
And I'll say
we
this,
snapped it a little too soon.
Seth, one of the things about the up the field ends is, so this goes back like years and years defense. How do you play goal line defense? Well, you bring everybody, because you got to, and you bring 2 guys off both edges right now. You got to. I mean, just because you're at the goal line. And so that play in the middle of the field, he probably doesn't run up. It's probably an easier, hey, I've got to figure out what to do with this pitch guy.
Right. Yeah, so from a play call perspective, just drawing it up on the whiteboard and looking how the blocking scheme developed, not a bad play call at all. Because honestly, a direct snap to the running back and letting him run counter is maybe one of the safest things you can do. There's not even a handoff. But with doing it with a true freshman, not getting rid of the option element of the play, because I'm gonna tell you something. I've coached against flexbone teams that I've watched them on film and said, man, their quarterback's doing an unbelievable job of reading that, but then sometimes he just reads it wrong. And they were really athletic, so they sometimes still, even if you read it wrong, it turns into a good play. And I was talking to their OC at a track meet one time. We had an in-depth conversation about their offense, and I asked him about, hey, how in the world do you get so good at reading the midline and reading the veer and reading the speed option and reading the load option, like all those things your quarterback's doing? He goes, we don't read it. I go, do what? Y'all are in the flexbone. The flexbone, for those that don't know, is like what Army and Navy run. Mm-hmm. And I said, y'all don't read that? He goes, nah, we don't read any of that. We call keep or give pre-snap until about week 3 or 4. And then if we feel like our quarterback is ready, we'll have him read one scheme. He goes, and it's usually midline. We don't even make it a triple option. It's just double. Like, give it to the fullback or you keep it. And he goes, because we found that when we tried to read it all from day 1 of practice on, we played slow. We couldn't, and fumbles and, all that stuff. He said, we wanted to take that out of the kids' hands and just let them go play. And so that was what I was getting around to. Like, if you just take that out of Morrow's hands, which they may have. I mean, look, I've told a freshman the option's off, and then they get out there and blank, and go, oh, wait, or whatever. I've told a freshman something, and they go out and do the complete opposite. That happens in sports, too. That happens in coaching, too. So I think that may have been, but either way, long short of it is the scheme was fine, but all the little things around it were not fine. Get rid of the option, maybe keep EJ in there and let him do it, all that type of stuff. And I got to credit Mark. I had a clip, but I'm not even going to pull it up because I don't know where it's at. I did download it, Mark. But Mark talked about 2 weeks ago, one of the ways to play the mesh is to go blow up the mesh. And that's how, even though you say, Mark, this is red zone, they did play blow up the mesh a couple of times outside of the red zone. As a matter of fact, blow up the mesh is what caused the fumble scoop and score, because that I don't have the clip of, but that is what caused that. Their guy got a great jump, and he wasn't playing quarterback or running back. He was playing blow up the mesh, And what did it cost? Just like you talked about, it caused a fumble, scoop, and score. One of the biggest plays of the game for South Carolina at that point to really get them out there in front. So, yeah, man, I'll give South Carolina's defense credit. That was how they wanted to play some of this, was go blow up the mesh, go make them make a fast decision, and sometimes it creates huge plays for you. And anyway, that was what, yeah, that play call was not a bad play call. Believe me, I was live I was at the game, so when it happened, I was like livid. But then when I got home, this is what usually happens: you go home and watch the film, and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad if we'd have just not done all that other stuff with it.
Well, that's why you hear coaches, if you watch post-game press conferences, people always ask about this or that, and they're like, hey, guys, I'm not going to comment until I can watch film, because we all have that human element that we see it, and it's, oh, my gosh, what are we doing? And then you go watch film, and you're like, oh, well, that's what they were trying to do. It just didn't play out. But
and I'll say this, nobody ever coached Morrow, if that guy attacks, jump up in the air and throw it like that. That's never been done. Like, so
No.
he was
That's what I'm
outside the
saying.
scheme. He was way outside the scheme.
Yeah. Yep. All right, man. Well, Mark, tell us about the good, bad, and ugly on the defensive side.
You know, we played average in the first half defensively. Not bad.
No,
just
offense
just
puts you on bad,
but just kind of
situations.
average. And maybe that goes back to what Seth said about mindset going into the game, with them being, you know, like 1-6 and all that. But the second half was really the true indicator to me of how this defense can be when they are dialed in. I thought the D-line played with more snap and attack, especially the inside guys in the second half. And we have to figure out a way to make that the standard for them for 60 minutes. Because when this defense can do that for 60 minutes, people are in trouble. And so if you look at my screenshot, Seth, can you pull up I think it's clip 13 on Canva. It's just a screenshot of a first half run play where they kind of gash us. So this is just our normal scheme stuff. So you have a stand-up 5 to the left. That's Cassius. Samford's going to be stacked at 5 yards in that gap. And then you have a 3 technique. You have a G on the other side and a wide 5 and 4 down. And you have York playing the mic. They have a tight end. And this is really, if you look at how it's spaced, if you just look at this play, where's the ball going right now, pre-snap? It's going right there. They have what people used to run in the slot T is what we call a nasty slot, which is a wide tight end with a guy, a slot inside of him. They did that with the tackle here. So they're and the back is set deep. So they're just going to run a B gap zone play. We are running an interior stunt with the 2 interior D linemen. The 3 technique is going to spike to A gap. The G is going to spike to the backside B gap to the backside. We're bringing a safety. If you look in the top left corner, we're bringing a safety down to play the alley because they've plussed a gap. So instead of having just an A gap and a B gap, this guy inserts. Now you have an A, B, C, and an alley. So we're bringing a guy down. And what happens here, and I didn't put the clip on there of this play, but when we run this play, when we spike, we both spike very lateral. The center is going to come to the 3 gap, to the 3 technique. And when he comes, it ends up with this 3 technique being in this backside A gap, and he's going to get washed. And York is going to step to stack to the G. So the G is moving out here, but he's going to step to stack to play anything that this tight end were to come out and run a route over here. York's got him. So he steps to stack, and he gets caught up in the wash of this 3 technique is going to be up the field 3 yards washed. Samford does a great job. He runs the alley like you would want him to do pre-snap. Hey, run it. It's coming right here to the big gap. Run it. You know you've got a spiking 3 technique. But he ends up missing the tackle. The safety, who I tell you, our safeties get down in the wash a lot, he ends up getting all the way down into the alley, and he's no factor when Samford misses the tackle. And in the second half, what is different about all of these stunts is what we taught: if you're spiking to A gap, you're spiking off the center's hip. If the center comes to you, you've either got to get vertical now, or you've got to press his butt back in the hole and be a factor here to create an edge for this linebacker, and he gets washed into the mic, and we've got one-on-one, and he misses the tackle, and it's a huge gain. In the second half, we start getting spike penetration. He sees that guy coming, and he gets into it. He gets vertical into his spike. And in the first half, we were very lateral, getting washed. In the second half, those defensive tackles really started pressing hard. So that was the biggest good for me in the second half, was watching our defensive tackles attack a little more. So that was my good. Huh?
Can we, Mark, I'm going to flip it back and let's talk about that. I'd like to let you explain to everybody how ridiculously great the corner blitz from the boundary was called that that we thought won the game. So I'm going to pull that up. Break this down for everybody. If there's a quintessential snapshot of a pressure play, Elko defense, it might be it,
So we have Rylan Kennedy in, and he's playing linebacker, but he's walked up, looks like a D lineman about to attack. We bring the corner blitz. We invert the cover 3 coverage and play over the top. Rylan Kennedy he ends up being your hook curl guy. There's really nobody for him to cover. And then so the corner blitz comes easy because they've got to turn the protection. If you notice where Rylan Kennedy is, they're going to turn the protection away from the corner blitz. And so that other guy's getting out, that tight end is getting out the slot. So the tackle kicks really wide. And it's really, most people, when they run a cat blitz, they're bringing the corner off the edge. This is a cat switch. The defensive end is going to get vertical and let the corner come off inside of him. It's one of my favorites. You run this a lot with your linebackers with a switch. Let the defensive end get vertical and the linebacker comes off his hip. But we run it with the cat, and that's unbelievable what we're doing with Rylan Kennedy, what we're doing with the cat switch. Will Lee had played cover 3 pretty poorly. We're playing cover 3 behind it. So if he's going to play it poorly, let's let him go attack. I don't think Will Lee understood how to tackle a quarterback that big the first time. So he
got him the second time.
But he comes back and gets him because everything's covered.
If there's a room on defense where, like the wide receiver room equivalent on defense, the cornerback room is that, So it's like, instead of laying on his face and slamming his hand into the ground thinking, well, Sellers is probably just threw the ball. Nah, he's get right up and right after that relentless effort that Elko always talks about. Seeing that play out in there is a metaphorical play of Elko's defense of completely confusing a protection scheme, relentless effort, nowhere to go, quarterback's in a blender. That's it.
And I'll say,
I was like, man, there it is.
I forgot to mention this part. We're playing cover 3 up top. We're playing man down to the bottom. You talk about having to make a college quarterback understand what NFL teams are going to do to him. That's it right there. We are man down here. We end up in man 3 down here on the bottom, and we're cover 3 up top. That is good luck.
There's nowhere to go.
With a cat blitz coming at you right freaking now.
Yes.
All I can tell you is good luck reading that in a hurry. Everybody's covered.
Statistically speaking, this is a 4-man pressure versus a 6-man protection because that tight end was trying to chip. I know he gets out on a route,
he did. Yeah.
But that's 4 versus 6, completely unblocked. that's what it's like. How do you?
And everyone's covered. That's the other thing that you have to mention.
There's nowhere to go.
There's no hot route.
It's a Mona Lisa.
He's got to take the check down tight end right now. As soon as he sees it, he's got to throw into it.
And that's 4th and 15, and we've got bodies there to tackle. You know what I mean?
He knows that. That's right.
Yeah. So it's like, I just laughed in the game. I was like, I can't wait to watch that on film because that felt like a Mona Lisa right there. I felt like I just looked at the Mona Lisa.
It's what we call clinic tape.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to tell this at a clinic because they're not going to show them how they played man 3 and cover 3 up top.
Nope, not at all.
And not to mention is what if they motion the back, or what if they motion the slot receiver all the way over? Everything has to be checked out of then.
Yeah.
It's pretty high level stuff. So my better was we were more physical in the second half, and all 11 players played with more physicality in the second half of the game. That was, you could just tell that they said the heck with this. We're giving up easy stuff. We're missing tackles. Screw all that. We're about to put the hammer down, and we're about to get after your butt. And you could see that level of intensity change. And understand, the defense had to go into the second half with, we have to get 3 and outs as many times as possible. And they can't score. And I just put it like we went down and scored, made it 30-10. And they had 76 yards in the second half. Well, they had 48 or 41 on the first drive of that second half. And so that just tells you what they did after that. I mean, we completely shut them down after that first drive and that 4th and 1 where it's 30-10. After that, they couldn't do anything. And everybody had to be all 11. You're talking about the cat blitz. All 11 have to be right here. The defensive end has to get vertical. The corner has to come hidden off his hip. They have to play cover 3 and cover the deep right over there. On the backside, somebody has to pick up the back out as the check down, and York does that. Everything has to one guy misses this, it's a big completion. One guy messes this up. And we're talking about asking guys to show one thing, be ready to check out of it if they motion the slot receiver over, if that tight end motions out or something on the other side. Everybody has to be able to check out of stuff. And then for everybody, all 11 to execute it, that allowed Will Lee to miss the tackle and come back and make the tackle because he had 10 other guys doing their job perfectly. And that's what we saw a lot of in the second half. So my ugly was our cover 3 looks. Will Lee gave up that. I mean, Sellers threw a dime on that fade route.
He did.
We're in cover 3,
man.
and Will Lee has the deep third. But there's a thing about, when we first started teaching zone coverages back in the 90s, everybody was spot dropping. The backside linebacker is going to spot drop to hook and curl. As that progressed, we started talking about, kind of matchup zone. You're hooked to curl. You get that, he's yours. That kind of thing. You're dropping off the number 2 route. The number 2 receiver is going to run a route, and you're going to drop off that. If the number 2 does this, then you go here and that kind of thing. But one thing that I would say, when you're a cover 3 corner and you're bailing at the snap, you're lined up probably at 7 and you're bailing. At some point, you have to see the number 2 receiver, right? Because if 1 and 2 both run vertical, you've got to double cover that. You've got to midpoint it and see the throw. What happens on that route is the number 2 goes away right now. There's only number 1. He's a threat. And so there's 2 ways to look at that as a corner. I can zone turn, keep my eyes on the quarterback, which is what I'm taught in cover 3, or I can realize, hey, he's my only threat. And he's running a vertical, I'm going to man turn. And Will Lee is a lot better when he man turns. That's what they do a lot of, him and Ricks. They shut people down by man turning into them, getting their hands on them, and playing the ball late. And that was the only thing that was going to help that. So I didn't like some of our cover 3 looks. I like how we adjusted and we inverted it and let Will Lee take the flat or blitz, in this case that we saw in the cat blitz, and let the slot guy play the vertical. Just invert that, and it looked a lot better. But I didn't like our cover 3 looks. I didn't like the way our defensive tackles played in the first half. That was kind of my ugly. But other than that, the defense really played pretty well. You think about giving up, offensive touchdowns and stuff. And then this is the other thing that I didn't like was we talked about this against Missouri, was when they run the split flow zone, that we need to collision the tight end that's the split flow. Because I told you against Missouri, they gashed us on the run. In this case, we do a good job of getting to the run. We're going to tackle that for nothing, but we don't collision the tight end. And what do they do? They just pull it and they dump it to him. And now there's nobody left there because we're using B-gap blitzers like Brooks. And there's nobody there now, and they get a big, big play out of this. I don't know what I got to do to tell people. Tell that defensive end, he's a puller, collision him. Even if he goes out on the route afterwards, you've made that quarterback he's rerouted. It gives us a chance. And, we had 2 on the back, and they gashed us, and can we start collisioning the split flow? I mean, we didn't do it well in the first half on other plays too, even on run plays. But man, don't let that guy out free. And we saw that against Missouri, and I told you that's what people will run off of it. That is South Carolina seeing that on film and going, hey, they're going to fix the run because they gave up a big run. They're going to fix that and slow play that linebacker or use the safety. Let's get the tight end out and dump it to him. They got nobody for him.
100%. Yeah.
And so that was ugly.
All right, so moving on to Big Bad Samford, coming into Kyle Field at 1-10 on the season. I did not. I'm gonna be honest. I did not watch a lot of film on this team because
I refuse to.
Yeah, I watched enough to know that they base out of a 4-2-5. They're giving up over 37 points a game, over 400 yards of offense a game, 165 on the ground, 285 through the air. They got a DN that does have 10 tackles for a loss and 7 sacks, number 88. Of course, that's not against our offensive line, but you know,
he'll be in the portal.
Yeah, he may be the next
True.
Hal, who knows? And then leading tackler is senior linebacker number 5 with 97 tackles, and the guy with the leading interceptions in the secondary is number 9, sophomore. He's got 2 INTs and 2 pass breakups. They're just not very good. So if our offense struggles on this, it's not going to be good. But Mark, what you got on their offense? It doesn't look like you had a whole lot there, boss.
Well, because it's so bad. I'm different than you guys. I watched the entire Baylor Samford game.
That's what happens when everybody in your house is sick.
Yeah, they're a bad football team. They have a win this year. They have one win over a school called Ferrum, and I feel pretty good. Like, we used to play the game of name the mascot, who are the banana slugs and that kind of stuff. And I've never even heard of Ferrum. So they've already fired their head coach. So they're out of whack with how it's done. You're supposed to wait till you lose to A&M and then you fire your coach, but they've messed that scheme up. They run the typical, what I call the 1-800 spread. And if you're a coach, you know about the 1-800 number. I'll just leave it at that, the old school spread and how that was all built. And all I can say is, did I mention that they're bad? If you want some stats, their quarterbacks, they've played 2. They're on to their second guy now, and they've been sacked 51 times this year. That ought to tell you. And this is against people, like, if you look at their schedule, they've been getting sacked against people. Man, they play in a bad league too. So they're not good. They're really bad. And so,
well, tell us your prediction on the game then. What do you? How bad do you think?
I really feel like it'll be 63-3. I feel like that's pretty. I'd love to have a shutout against these guys. I think it's possible, but we're gonna have a lot of moving parts and a lot of you're gonna need your roster in front of you during this game to go, who is that guy? Because he's doing something really good, and you're not going to know him. And so maybe we do something bad late in the game and they kick a field goal. I don't know. So 63-3.
Okay. Well, I'm going to shoot for that shutout because I'm ready for a shutout. I don't know when the last time we had a shutout was. They're hard to come by in today's modern offensive era. But I'm going to say 55-0. I'm going to give up a touchdown on offense to get that shutout. So, Seth, what do you got?
I'm going to go 57-6. We'll probably give up a fourth quarter with like 1 minute left touchdown when the walk-ons are all in. And then Ethan Fisher will miss the extra point.
That would be so perfect. Anyway, so who's your player of the game there, Mark?
For the prediction for this game?
Yeah. Who's your player of the game for this?
So I'm gonna go with Rylan Kennedy. I think he's gonna get a lot of snaps to get him comfortable in some stuff. And the guy is just like, okay, so let's do a little pat Mark Brown on the back right here.
Mark does
last
like that
year.
Game.
I do like that game because last year, go back and look at the podcast early in the year. There was a defensive end, and I said, this guy's about to be special. And we were talking about Scorton and all these other guys we had. And there was a guy named Cassius Howell, a little kind of thin looking, not as muscular as he could be, but he was wreaking havoc. And I was like, that guy's the next guy. That guy's going to be unbelievable. And I was right. And I think Rylan Kennedy fits in that mode too. I think So I'm gonna go with my boy Rylan Kennedy to make some unbelievable plays in this game and be the player of the game on defense.
All right, Seth, what's your player of the game?
I want to give me Marcel Reed. Get this guy 5 or 6 touchdowns in the first half, so he can, you know what I mean? Because like, let's get a snapshot of him flexing on some little kid about like me.
Getting that swagger back.
Brooks
Getting
going
that
into the end
swagger back.
zone. Let's get that. Let's talk about how we're back and all that. Like, oh, we're back. We're already here. But either way, anyway, I'm just joking about that. But no, seriously, like getting 5 or 6 touchdowns, and if that happens, if he's got 5 touchdowns with 10 minutes to go in second quarter, then bench him. Like get his touchdown numbers up, and get him out of the game so he can stat pad a little bit. And then what I'm most excited about watching though is both sides of the ball. Those young linemen like DJ Rink on the D line, he's been sneaking in some meaningful snaps more and more. Like he played a decent amount against Missouri because that outside zone does wear your lineman out, having to run sideline to sideline over and over. So he played some there. He played against LSU a little bit. Like I'm ready to see him. I'm ready to see that young offensive line get more than just a few snaps. Like I'm ready to see them actually go out and get some series over and over again. It's excited to see what they can look like for next year. And then if I got to call out some deep roster pick that I'm hoping they scheme up a couple of touches for, and if he gets them, I think he'll wow us with his athleticism. Is that the tight end kid who's a true freshman, Coyote Armstrong. He is his high school film last year. The guy is a freakish athlete, but he was very raw, very, very raw. Needs a lot of polishing. And but I would love for them to ski him up a little wide flat where he gets to catch it and do some rack for us. And we might be going, look at this tight end run with the ball in his hand. He weighs 260 pounds. Anyway, I'm excited about that. I'd love to see him get a touch or two.
Okay. Well, that's it for this week, guys. And then, of course, we take care of business this week and the big one down in Austin to seal up going to Atlanta. So everybody have a good week. Like I said, if you could like, share, comment, all those things. We're still trying to grow subscribers. So please help us out there. But this is Trace Amigos signing out. Thanks and gig 'em.
Gig 'em.
Insurance agents talk about Texas Aggie football.